Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Third Impact Anime Podcast.